All right, our last topic in this introductory unit are planes of the body, which are used to divide the body into sections. And those can be theoretical sections, or if you were dissecting, they could be physical cuts. All right. And then we're going to talk about cavities inside the body, which are hollowed out parts that your organs lie in. Okay. So, first for the planes, the sagittal plane is a vertical line that extends, from the top of the body down to the bottom, and it separates the body into a left side and a right side. All right. If it's right down the midline, it's called a mid-sagittal plane. And if it's slightly off, then you call it a parasagittal plane. So it creates unequal sides. The other vertical plane is the frontal plane or the coronal plane, and it separates the body into a front side and a back side, okay, anterior and posterior. A horizontal plane is called a transverse plane, so it separates into a top and a bottom, superior and inferior, all right? And then any kind of cut or division that goes at an angle, you call an oblique plane. Okay, and it can be any angle. All right. Next, we have body cavities. First of all, the reason you have body cavities is it protects your most vital organs. If you think about your body as being, kind of long and tall, picture if you had a stick in one hand and you had a drinking straw in another hand. The stick is solid all the way through, and if you try to bend it, it's going to break, and you're going to get tissue damage where that bending is occurring. All right. Now, the straw, on the other hand, if you bend it, it has that hollow cavity on the inside, and it can expand into that cavity. And then when you bring it back, it's going to go back to normal. So as you move your body, your heart and your lungs and your intestines can all move around inside those cavities as your body moves, and they don't sustain damage. Okay, so the first cavity is what's called the dorsal cavity, and remember, dorsal means along the spine. So this is essentially for your nervous system, and it's divided into two smaller cavities: the cranial cavity for your brain, and the vertebral cavity for your spinal cord. Goes through your vertebrae. All right. Next is a thoracic cavity, which means chest, and at the bottom it is separated from the abdominal cavity by the diaphragm. All right, and then it basically takes up the rest of your rib space. Okay. Now it's also divided into smaller parts. Each lung is surrounded by a membrane, and so that creates a pleural cavity. And then the whole middle part is called the mediastinum. Okay? Now, the heart has its own membrane that surrounds it. It's called the pericardium. And so that's called the pericardial cavity. Okay? And then lastly, we have the abdominopelvic cavity. And it goes from the diaphragm all the way to the pelvic floor. And it's separated into the abdominal cavity, which contains your digestive organs, and then the pelvic cavity, which contains the bladder, reproductive organs, and then the end of your large intestine.